Hallo, guten Abend. Ich fange an mit der Vorstellung der beiden Kolleginnen, die hier sitzen. Viele werden Aslı Erdoğan kennen und danach werdet ihr beide kennen. Also we met first in Rotterdam, I think, personally, on the ICON meeting. Yeah. ICON is International Cities of Refuge Network. That's an international organization of actually cities and some institutions which are helping people to find an exile and personal safety. You were in exile that time already. Yeah. You were arrested in Turkey in 2016 and came to Germany after you were released, and
9 months later.
9 months later, yes. And you were a journalist in Turkey and a writer also already.
Actually, I didn't do any journalism. There is a sort of misinformation about me in Wikipedia. I was a columnist in the 98 to 2001, and then I got fired. And I couldn't find any job with the press, so I never had a journalistic press card, for example. And in 2010, again, I found a job as a columnist, and I got fired again. And then I started writing time to time for this pro-Kurdish newspaper. And actually, I was not even their regular columnist when I was arrested. So I was arrested on the grounds that I was on their advisory board.
Yeah.
So it will be, please. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. And after your release, you had to wait for about 3/4 of a year until you get your passport back, if I'm not mistaken, and before you can leave the country. And you was under the constant threat of the regime in Turkey at that time.
And actually, I had received some important prizes like European Cultural Foundation Award, Margaret Yursenar Villa Award, but I didn't have permission to go abroad. And in June, I mentioned the Erich Maria Remarque Award, and I asked permission to go. And the judge lifted the ban on my passport in June, but it still took me more than 2 months before I got my passport because the police didn't give it. So around the end of August, beginning of September, I finally got my passport.
Yeah. You weren't, at the time we met, you weren't in a scholarship of the Börsenverein. I think, I'm not too sure whether it was a Börsenverein or the state, the government of Frankfurt town.
They were together, Börsenverein and the Frankfurt Stadt, and ICON also helped. It was a big collaboration.
You were, before you started all that, or maybe you started writing and you was, this word where I always fight with when I have to say that in English. The German word is Physiker. You are a Teilchenphysiker.
Yeah, I was a physicist. I was a physicist.
Yeah,
back in the 90s, actually. Yeah. I was a high energy, or what they call particle physicist, and my thesis was on Higgs particles, so it was actually a very important thesis at CERN. Yeah, I worked at CERN, but I quit physics around 95, 96, when my first novel came out in 94. 95, I quit physics, but that time I was in Brazil, actually. So after I returned to Turkey in 96, I only did writing, basically.
Your books are translated in how many languages? In many.
22 you know at the
22,
moment.
Yeah, okay.
I can't. I have this little.
So we have a problem with the with a line. I think you are freeze. Am I there?
Literature is
Yeah, okay.
it's heavy and dark. I mean, I don't find publishers every other week. It's always begging, begging.
Yeah, that's a normal job, isn't it? But you are very well recognized all over the globe, if you want to say so.
Well, not equally. Like in France, my literature is very much recognized. Germany is lagging behind. In US, not at all. And in Turkey, I had a very precarious position. I mean, I was always an outcast. And then I had the fame, but probably a negative fame. I mean, I think more people hate me than those who like me.
Yeah, but hatred is also recognition or not. That is, and
well, in Turkey, it's easy to be hated. Actually, you don't have to do much. They are so willing to hate you. I mean, so.
Nazli, correct me if I spell your surname wrongly. Karabıyıkoğlu.
No, you're perfect.
Okay. After and you applied for the scholarship and we accepted that, which of course was no question. The first time we get in contact was on a telephone call, if I remember right, about students in Turkey which are queer students and which are have problems with the government, which is changing.
Yeah.
Is that changing the line of behavior against queer people, or was that always that problematic as it is now?
Frankly, it has been always a trouble being a queer people in Turkey. It's been like that. You're in trouble for many years, but after the current government began to rule, and maybe the baby steps of the resigning of the Istanbul Convention, then it arose, and now we are in a big trouble, I suppose.
Okay, you have written 5 books. My records say.
Yeah.
Your first book in German is on the way, and we will not tell now which publishing company that might be, but it's on the way to be published in Germany.
Yeah. And it's also in way to published in USA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a very talented and beloved agent called Mina Hamedi, which I was working with Janklow and Nesbitt in USA. And yeah, in Germany, it's also going to be translated in German. By the way, simultaneously, it will be translated in the English as well.
As well, you look to be a very brave person, because you started some sort of a Me Too process or action within the literary scene in Turkey, which actually resulted in that you are not being published in Turkey, if I'm right.
You are totally right. And Aslı is also right, because it's so easy to be hated in Turkey. Now, maybe I should be proud of to be hated too much, because, I started Me Too, and I'm so proud of it. And it was a really big move. And after my disclosure in 2018, last year in 2020, also I disclosed a big novelist, so-called the Turkish Franz Kafka. And after that, I'm so gladly to get the feedbacks that I'm more hated now, but it's okay.
And you went into exile to Georgia.
My exile.
That is not the best country for people which are gay.
Yeah, there's a really big story in Georgia about gay people, but I just want to clarify that my exile is a self-exile. I exiled myself because I had to do something for my country and for the rights which I defend, and for the patriarchy which I stand against.
Yeah.
So I exiled myself. I know that it's not a common thing, but I had to do that. So yeah, it's a big sacrifice, but I think in the end it will worth it. And yeah, in Georgia, I spent 3.5 years in Georgia, and Georgia is so, how can I say, it's a weird country. It's so peaceful and green and natural on the one side. On the other side, the Orthodox Church is really, it's really oppressing the whole country. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's a truth that on, if I'm not wrong, on 2013 or 14, in the Pride Walk, gay people attempt to do a Pride Walk in Tbilisi, Georgia, and the Orthodox Church and the priest just kicked them with the some 3 parts, you know.
Yeah.
Beat them, and yeah, after that year there was no Pride Walk in Georgia.
Aslı, after Erdoğan started he was not other way around. As Erdoğan was first time elected, it was not on the record that this becomes a dictatorship like this one we have now, at least under our impression here. Maybe in Turkey there was always the fear about having, and this destroyed a lot of culture and art and literature. What do Europe need to do to save art from Turkey for being destroyed? Because that could be easily be the next step, or not?
Yeah, it is a very long question, so I will go in pieces. First of all, I think in 2003 or 2002, when he came to power, he actually came with a promise of more democracy and freedom. And that time, Turkish society was actually very much in desire, in a thirst for freedom. Turkish society was changing fast. I remember a time, beginning of this millennium, where you could see 4 or 5 demonstrations within an hour in Taksim Square. It was a society which asked for change and learned to speak. And Erdoğan came with this promise, actually. And I think, I don't want to be sound boasting, but I'm kind of one of the very first, because I'm a natural pessimist. In around 2008, to say, look, something is going really wrong. I mean, you look at these reforms, I mean, these reform packages that Europe was so willing to buy, because nobody really went through all these articles. If you read 20 of these articles, there was always one time bomb that could be, you know, within 8 years put to jail 10,000 people. It was already there, but people didn't want to see it. People didn't want to see these little time bombs. And in 2007 was also the murder of Hrant Dink, which was also a very important signal that people underestimated. Something was really going in the wrong direction. But, you know, we don't want to see it, probably. And I think with Gezi, in 2013, I think everybody saw what's happening with this orgy of police violence. The world saw reluctantly. And I think since 2015 or 2016, the coup attempt, everything has been, it's accelerated speed, collapsing. The whole judicial system collapsed. The cultural life is collapsing. I mean, if you look at Berlin now, you will see artists, actors, film directors, not only journalists and writers, who are generally the first target, rap singers, academicians. And even in the junta years, there was not such a group coming out to Europe. Those who came to Europe in 1980s were the leftists. I think this is a very important sign that now actually the pressure and the oppression is much bigger. It's on a much wider scale. It's not only on the leftists, it's on everyone. And that there are so many intellectuals or artists, even in Berlin, I think is a clear sign where this oppression is leading to. They want to cut the vocal cords of the society. We are the vocal cords of Turkey, all of us. And we are all, one way or the other, silenced. And I think this damage is, I don't want to sound megalomaniac, but I think damage to the culture is quite irreplaceable. I mean, I don't want to give an example of Germany, but I will. I mean, Germany suffered a lot. When you burn books, it is irreversible. I do believe that. It takes decades and decades and generations to bring up, to liven up the cultural scene. And in Turkey, it was just awakening. Beginning of this millennium, after the 1980 junta, the 2000 cultural scene was just flourishing. And now, they swept over it once again. And I think it will take a long, long time to recover from this blow. Because they are longer. The junta was only 2 or 3 years, 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. But this has been going on for almost a decade. And the longer it goes on, the deeper the damage. This is more or less what I want to say.
Must we save the art from Turkey? Or is that because this is not only a dictatorship like a dictatorship was in the as we used to being a dictatorship. This is also a religion dictatorship. It becomes more and more fundamental religion-wise. So that is
that is another danger. Yes,
is that a threat to the art to
of
being
course.
destroyed?
Of course. I mean, one little example: the Bosphorus University. What happened there? It was a simple protest. Students protested that the dean or the rector is appointed by Erdoğan. Simple, very normal demonstrations. And it's our constitutional right. Protesting is not illegal in Turkey. And look what it turned into. They found, I don't know if that picture really existed, but they said there was an exhibition of pictures where there was this Kabe, this sacred place of Muslims. There was a photo or picture of it, and it was thrown onto the ground. And this exhibition was organized by the LGBTI. Now, this is very new. Not the junta didn't do this. This kind of, making sacred of photos of Kabe is really, we are in 21st century. I mean, come on. What's wrong with having the photo of Kabe in an exhibition? And this is the conversion of Saint Sophia to mosque. This thing about Kaaba, this picture, I didn't really understand what the debate is all about. I mean, the photo was on the ground or something, or LGBTI touched it. I mean, the level was unimaginable. And they brought in the issue of the gays and lesbians, and it kind of criminalized them. And all this tied together, all the concepts of freedom of thought, I think, were, raped in this. There was an orgy of police violence on these students. The academy was, banned or crossed out. The LGBTIans was crossed out. Even the Minister of Interior used very derogatory terms for gays. This is a first, okay. I mean, a minister saying it in the official level is another signal. And the photo of Kaaba. I mean, this is really, are we going to be Iran or something? What kind of freedom of art can we talk about if they criminalize an exhibition of university students? And the rhetoric they use to criminalize them is Islamic sacred things, and these people have, connections with LGBTI.
Michele asked, can it be that Erdogan's course of policy are financed and pushed behind the scenes by Saudi Arabia?
Well, I really don't know these things. I mean, this is all his connections with Muslim Brotherhood and everything is beyond me. But
okay.
it is very clear that he wants to play the role of the Ottoman Padishah in a way. He wants to be the leader of the Muslim world. That is very clear, and his ego will not be satisfied by less. And that's why he's putting on this rhetoric also all the time. The Westerners, they are hypocrites. They did this, they did that. Because he's playing actually not only to Turkey, but also to the whole Muslim world. And probably he is some support from Muslim world, probably Qatar. And I don't know, it's very complicated actually. The Muslim world is also so divided and fighting against each other. But also I think we have to also consider that Europe is maybe not supporting Erdogan, but is not stopping him either. I mean, Europe is kind of gently criticizing him, and that's it.
Nazli, behind you there is a paper sheet on your wall.
Yeah.
What is that about?
I wrote it in Turkish, and it says that where is Gülistan Doku? Wo ist Gülistan Doku? Gülistan Doku was a university student in Turkey, if I'm not wrong, in Tunceli, the eastern area of Turkey. And it is so obvious who killed Gülistan Doku, but for more than 1 year, I think it's 1.5 years, her body could not be found, and Gülistan Doku's mother still seeks for justice, and she wants her daughter's body even. But the government doesn't do anything to conduct all the files, or the government knows the guilty one, but the government does anything.
That is not the only person who is missing in Turkey.
Of course.
And if I'm not mistaken, if my information are right, then we have more than, I do not know, about 1,200 or something like that person missing in the within the last few years, more or less.
Yeah.
I think it started before the coup. But after that, it was increasing, and this is something we know from South America from the years before. We do not know that much from Turkey. And if I remember the times in the 80s, as the junta was ruling, then there we know that many people were tortured and they were in jails, but at least for most of them, we know where they are and who they were. And but now these are people missing. Normal people from normal villages are disappearing. Or not. That is the situation at the moment, or isn't it?
It is, and it is directly related with the freedom of speech. And since the freedom of speech is human rights, it's directly related with human rights. I think in today's Turkey, there are at least three ways of censorship, and all of these censorships are giving their outputs with the lives of humans who are living in Turkey. For example, the first one is self-censorship, which is triggered by fright of losing anything. It can be anything. It can be your life, a car park, even your job, depending on oppression, losing your any kind of privileges. And the second one is the censorship mostly occurs from peer pressure, we say, depending on the culture and civilization level of the neighborhood. The effect of peer pressure forces people to act censorship. And the third one is the formal one, the official censorship done by governments. I want to give an example about the third one, which is the formal official censorship. If we have time, I want to give another examples of the previous two. The third one, the governmental censorship, which can be like we talked about the absence of people in Turkey. For example, if we are going to talk about freedom of speech in Turkey here today, now, 2 weeks ago, 2 young people from Turkey prepared a TikTok video about the ways of using Turkish passport efficiently, and obviously, which was just for fun and humor. It was obvious. But guess what? They got arrested. And in the end, they are banned from traveling outside of Turkey, ironically, as if they would travel with Turkish passport. You know, the level of official censorship in Turkey can be understood with this application. If we are discussing freedom of speech in Turkey here now, I do not think that it is a discussable subject right now. If we are discussing freedom of speech internationally, let's discuss. I can give you distinct examples internationally. But in Turkey, there is also a humor going on in social media like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Is there a freedom of speech in Turkey? If you need to define freedom of speech in Turkey, you need two things: human rights and freedom of speech. End of question.
To both of you, the situation is so that there is a very limited chance to publish books which are not just which has more than a meaning of art, which has political things in it. We have problems with newspapers. Even painters have problem to show their pictures. Do we need a European? And after Turkey is part of, let's see, of the countries where the European Union is working with, do we need some sort of places where we put where we give an exile to books and to art, where we save them in Europe, where we have I do not want 100 places where people can put, where artists can put their paintings, where writers can put their manuscripts, where people can save their art, and so that is not destroyed. That is not destroyed in Turkey. Is that something we need?
Well, I personally think how would you say, if I had one request from Europe, the first would be that they see the situation more realistically. I mean, I think the situation in Turkey is drastic, and people have a vague idea that it's not going well, but it's actually much worse than they perceive it. I mean, the numbers and the figures, even they are lying about the figures, so we can't really trust the statistics, but some say 30,000, some say 70,000 students were in jail at one point. I mean, these are incredible numbers. So I check and double check, and most of these people are there for one tweet. Just one tweet is enough. I mean, and before, for example, 4 years ago, the time I was arrested, there were police bustings for people like me. It was a special show. Now people just write one tweet and the police bust their apartment. I mean, the situation became really, really unimaginable. They have so many policemen, even for a one tweet, they can send all these anti-terror teams. And 900, I've just learned the statistics recently, 900 children under 16 are on trial for offending or insulting Erdoğan. 900 under 16. I mean, this is, what is going on in this country? And I was arrested. Many people are arrested. And, so many people who have connections to AKP or MHP, they have committed very violent crimes that leaked out the press, generally raping and killing of women, throwing women out of skyscrapers, burning women. And the three members of a Kurdish family were beaten to death in a hospital in front of cameras. And these people were not arrested. I mean, really it's going really incredibly bad. And so how do we collect all this or put this all together? I mean, do we save the artists? Do we save the writers? Do we save the students? I mean, everyone is at stake at the moment. It's really much worse than, let's say, 5 years ago. Now the oppression is general. They don't have even a little tolerance for a tweet, a TikTok. I mean, people get arrested for a funny video. I mean, this is beyond anything I've seen. I've seen 2 juntas. I mean, this kind of almost hatred of freedom of expression is even new to me. And I think maybe that is the point we should start, that actually people in Turkey are going through a very dark time, very dark tunnel. And we, the outside, those who managed to run outside in a way, out of Turkey, should try to tell, actually the situation is going worse and worse. And something has to be done, really. Maybe even today is perhaps too late, but I honestly don't know how or where to start. If the judicial system is gone, basically totally under control of the two lips of a man, anybody can go to prison anytime.
Do we need, what do you think about the policy of the German, of the European Union, which is under my expression, more or less accepting what happens in Turkey because they do not want to spoil the Turkish, how do you call it, these with the refugees in Turkey.
Yes,
they need Turkey to keep the refugees away from Europe.
Yes, probably. I mean, Europe is not monolithic, so neither is European Union. We are here because of some European institutions cared about us. Especially Germany was very sensitive. I mean, and some European institutions really know what's going on. There are reports, they know perhaps better than us. But then there is this, this inertia, let me say. Europe is quite reluctant to take big actions, to take big risks. Maybe it's pragmatism, maybe it's cynical pragmatism, what will change anyway. Turkey is Turkey. And always economic interests, political interests. I mean, I can't accuse politicians for thinking about their next election. If the refugees come, they will lose the election. So who cares about the writers in Turkey? So everything is against us, let's say. The realities of the world, the realities of Europe, the economics, the politics, all of these kind of unite against us. I feel that way. I mean, okay, the goodwill is there, but really, I think Europe can do a bit more. Honestly, can do a bit more. Take it perhaps a bit more seriously. I mean, what happens to women in Turkey or women in Poland will come like a boomerang to women in Germany. I think people are kind of not taking this into consideration. The right-wing, ultra-right is at a rise altogether. One dictator supports the other. And most important of all, I mean, these are European concepts. Freedom of expression, freedom of thought. It took hundreds of years, centuries of blood and thought to create these concepts and to formulate them. Why is it so easy to undermine them? If you don't really act according to your concepts, you are undermining your own concepts. And there is a price for that. Believe me, I mean, the history shows that. Freedom of thought is not a fancy expression. It is essential. And it can't be just within the borders of Europe or this and that. It has to be for everyone, for every human being. Because by definition, it's defined like that. Human rights is defined for every human. So if you start to kind of undermine here, no, let's stop, this is not that important. Actually, I think we are undermining the most essential concepts that took centuries to create. That's why I think it is quite important to react, at least try to react. No, Turkey, you are doing wrong. You have no right to do that. somebody should say it, I think, more loudly. But who, I don't know.
Sometimes I think we have a lack of information in Europe about Turkey. And I think I'm very good informed about things happen in the whole world, actually, because I read a lot and I've got a lot of news which other people are not getting, because I'm also working as a journalist. But after I heard from Nazli about the students at the university which were queer and which were under arrest because they were queer, I recognize that I know a lot more about Uganda and the situation in Africa than I know about the situation in Turkey, which is next door. And I never realized in the queer community in Germany that there must be a lot of Turkish people from every gender you got. But I never recognized that. I recognized Black people from Africa, which had flown to Germany. I recognized people from Arabian countries, but I never recognized that there must be people from Turkey, because that was not on my view, on my point of that. I never focused on that before. And I think we miss a lot of information. This is always like, we know that there are waves on the water, but we do not know how deep it is. You know
and also, I mean, the Erdoğan government is actually very successful, let's say, in propaganda and hiding, in fact, changing the truth. I mean, they are the best I've seen so far. They really, I mean, they have invented even a new vocabulary for it. They really invert the truth. And I have seen more than once that they play even with statistics, because in 2 years they forget. And if you are obsessed like me about numbers, you realize they're actually lying about numbers. So they are quite successful actually in playing this role to Europe. And maybe it's also our advantage. They do want to play this role. They want to still play the role. Turkey is not that bad, and we are still a democratic country. Maybe they will not need it in a few years. But I mean, the LGBTI, I personally think, Nazlı knows much better than me, are, I think, under a serious threat now, like it has never been before. I mean, 10 years ago, we could have gay prides and all this, but I remember in my last year in Istanbul, the transvestites, when they tried to demonstrate, they were terribly beaten up by police, and plus there was a kind of a lynch campaign in the social media, which was really nauseating, the terminology. So I don't think anymore gay pride is quite possible in Turkey. But after this Bosphorus University thing, I think it's really alarming. The speech of Minister of Interior. I mean, it's like Iran or something like this.
And it goes together, I think it's good, Nazli, if I say that right, it goes together with women's freedom rights, with freedom rights for women. It's always been together. If one is under pressure, then the other one is under pressure as well.
Yeah, I just want to give you an example of the peer pressure, which I was faced when I just left Istanbul after the coup, 2016 coup. I was living in Kanlıca, the Anatolian side of Istanbul. And after the coup, my life was dramatically changed changed even in 3 days. So with my example, maybe we can relate the women's rights and LGBTQI plus rights together more healthy. My everyday life got worse after the coup, and I just realized the masculinity performatives of people in the street arose. It became impossible to exist not only as a woman but or a LGBTQI plus people, but not being as them, or even in the street. And one day when I was driving through Istanbul, I got a very lame car, you know, it was so small, and I was going through just one-way road. It was just one way, and it was my way. And the other driver was coming on the opposite direction from the one-way road. And we were just head to head. And the man stopped his car and shouted at me, you go from here, this is my way. And I said no. And he just shouted at me, fucking get used to this, we own this country now. And I'm so sorry, but he was wearing a turban on his head, and his outfit was an Arabic traditional outfit. And I just stood up in front of this guy and I took my road, by the way. But when I remember how much I cried that day, and I cried a lot because this cry was not for just to be the weak one. I was not the weak one, but the sentence he said me, fucking get used to this. We own this country now. Who are you? Who are you? So yeah, I think with this example, we can directly see how the Turkish government perceive women's rights or the queer people's rights, LGBTQ rights. And I just want to add this. After Erdoğan's resigning, Turkey's resigning or Erdoğan's resigning, I'm not sure, from the Istanbul Convention, we should be aware of that. I'm so sorry about talking about numbers because human life is not a number. But before Istanbul Convention's resigning, it was approximately 3 or 4 women were killed by their husbands, by their fathers or the other male family members. But after the Istanbul Convention resigning from it, now the numbers are dramatically rising. It's like 6 or 7.
Per week, you mean? Or 6 or 7? 6 or 7 per week?
It's the not per week, I think. We have a Istanbul Convention. What did happen after resigning from Istanbul Convention?
Okay.
We have a website. You can all find the all detailed happenings and the numbers there. I'm just talking approximately. Maybe it's not one day, it's not 3, but the other day it's 7. So
okay, per day probably.
Yeah.
Per day,
Yeah.
so I think around 300 per year, a bit actually over 400.
Yeah.
So
And
this
also,
is the official number, of course.
Yeah.
Actually, much higher.
And also, I think we have to pay attention to the March 8th International Women's Day bans in Turkey, because this year there was actually the Bosphorus University happenings triggered the March International Women's Day protests, and the government was so angry with the Bozici, and the people in Bozici just went to streets in Kadıköy or the other parts of Istanbul, and the police just banned to speak up the slogans or International Women's Day's classical slogans. And it was not so late to ban the rainbow flag in the protest groups. And we can say that after resigning from Istanbul Convention, the freedom of speech criteria were highly changed. And now I'm just asking myself, should we be thankful for being able to wear a pair of rainbow colored socks?
Yeah, this is also important. Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
The visibility of LGBTQI people. You are banning colors. You are banning colors. I think I will not be able to understand this. Even from your socks, even from your umbrellas.
Yeah, but if that is not,
t-shirts.
if you cannot recognize people, then you feel left alone. That is the reason for it, or not? that you separate all the people into individual, left alone persons. Because they cannot see that there are other people like them. That is the point.
Yeah, Leander, I think the man with the turban just said this to me. You are not from this country. We own this country. You are because I was wearing a t-shirt, maybe a miniskirt. I didn't remember, but I'm always wearing like that. So I was not looking appropriately for him. So I think this is a summary of the situation. This is
at least you must
our country. Okay.
Yeah. And now the it's not done now, but it's on the way. The second largest opposition party, the HDP, is going to be forbidden.
Yeah.
And then there's nothing left then, or isn't it? That is there's everything is gone then except the AKP.
Yeah, I mean HDP is generally defined as pro-Kurdish party, but actually it's a bit unfair to just stamp it like that. HDP is like the 7 colors actually. They are the ecologists, they are the feminists. On the Armenian genocide, they are the only ones who could use that term. It takes a really courage to say Armenian genocide in Turkey. So the shutting down of the HDP, which I don't know if they will go this far, they are trying, but HDP is almost paralyzed anyway. They arrested probably around 10,000 of its members, and all the mayors and the upper the leaders of HDP, almost all are in prison, and they are facing huge sentences. Again, Europe only focuses on Selahattin Demirtas, but there are like 66 people on the high politically responsible positions that are at the moment in jail, and probably 3 times more in trial. So it's kind of also symbolic, I say. They don't want colors. They don't want Kurdish rights. They don't want women rights. They don't want the rights for animals, for this, for that, for trees. No, they don't. They just want a mono society. And they say it very openly. I mean, this guy in turban said it in a rude way, but Erdoğan and his team says it almost say it every other day. Turkey will be never the same again. They said it again and again and again. We are just too stupid to realize what they are saying. They've been saying this for years. No, everything will change in Turkey. We define everything. We shut down the parties, even the most, March 8th is my birthday, and I generally celebrated in March on demonstrations. Because they were very peaceful, very colorful, very creative. I mean, the police never attacked. It was police very often attacks demonstration. March 8th was sort of untouchable in a way. It was so like a festival, like a carnival. And now, starting from last year, and again with this religious rhetoric, they said these women kept on shouting slogans while the minarets were calling for prayer. This rhetoric was actually used first time. I mean, in all demonstrations, people keep shouting slogans. I mean, you don't even hear the azan, and there is no obligation to stop and listen to the azan. I mean, you are in a demonstration, you are there to shout. First time they said this, like, oh, they didn't stop because of the azan. And these women were attacked, by a group of AKP supporters with these big, huge knives the butchers use. They are saying very, very clearly, this is no longer the old Turkey. March 8th is now, if you go to March 8th now, you are under threat of being, stabbed. And the thing is, this is also an inversion of truth. They are doing the criminal acts. We are only using our freedom of expression. We are there shouting a few creative slogans. They are attacking us with knives. But they are criminalizing us. HDP is terrorist, Aslı Erdoğan is terrorist, Ahmet Altan is terrorist, women who go to March 8 are terrorists, Boğaziçi University students are terrorists. We are criminalized continuously while they are performing actually acts of crime against us.
If I'm not mistaken, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't believe that. If we take North Korea, Eritrea, and the Iran, then I'm not too sure. But then Turkey is fighting on being the leading dictatorship of the world, isn't it? Because the numbers of people in jail, each by each.
Yeah,
I think the only dictatorship you have then is North Korea, which comes near. Even Eritrea, where a lot of people are pressed to be soldiers, even if they are women or old men or old women. But the number of people in jail, nobody comes near.
Yeah, and
I cannot remember a country where I've heard about 10,000 of political prisoners at the moment.
yeah, may I speak on that because I'm obsessed with numbers, but like I just recently read 30,000 political prisoners in Turkey, or prisoners of terrorist acts, they call. These probably doesn't include those who go for tweet and all this. And the number, for example, in Spain is 200, in France, 200. Turkey has at least, probably twice more, 30,000 political prisoners. I think the number is actually much more. These are the terrorists. And in terms of female political prisoners, Turkey is the world champion. We are number one in the number of female political prisoners. I mean, compared, let's say China, they say horrible. China, with its population over 1.5 billion, has less female political prisoners than Turkey. I mean, we all want to believe, and I still believe, I'm very afraid of North Korea, Eritrea, and all this. But looking at the statistics show, Turkey is in fact in that league. In the number of arrested journalists, in the number of female political prisoners. My estimate is that, again, I'm saying an estimate because true numbers are so difficult to find. About 40,000 people were arrested per year since 2016 on political grounds. 40,000 is almost a world record. I mean, we are competing with Nazis. That's why I'm saying it's the numbers, really the statistics show another picture, darker than actually I could imagine or we could imagine, because we don't hear about many of these cases. We hear only the most famous ones. The Bosphorus University is a prestigious university in Istanbul. What happens to the little Anatolian towns, the Kurdish villages, all these things? I mean, it's really, okay, I still believe North Korea and Eritrea are much worse, because I've heard of horrible stories there that people go and spend 20 years without seeing a judge. Turkey has at least some sort of, let's say, a history of democracy. It at least tried, okay, 2 steps back, 1 step forward, but we have built in some institutions. So I try still to believe it will never go too far, but it is going, this is bad enough, let's say. This is bad enough. I mean,
of course, there are the murders in Turkey, which you have in the Kurdish part of Turkey. You have a lot of murder, and
they started again. Yeah.
But I think the difference is really that the government in Turkey want to silence the opposition, and they threaten them. But you cannot say, who knows within the next 20 years whether there are, how many of the people which are jailed now are still there. Who knows that? So the point of destroying the enemy is the same than in North Korea or Eritrea, possibly. We are at the beginning of the situation, or not. Yeah. Even after 10 years, we are at the beginning of the situation.
Yeah.
And normally, we have now 9:15. Normally, those talks end with a sunny outlook of the day tomorrow, and there's no rain. But I have no idea how to make that. I have absolutely no idea, because I cannot see how this government can be changed if it's not is the same way like the German Nazi government has been changed after losing a war. And
well,
I do not believe that this is possible from inside. What is your point of view on that?
Well, the history shows us that the dictatorships, they generally tend to go on for a long time, and if they are not stopped by losing a war or something, they have to lose a war. That because they have so absolute control, and the longer they stay in power, this power becomes more and more consolidated. So the opposition gets more and more broken down. So it becomes harder and harder. But I try to be hopeful again, looking at the history of Turkey. I mean, we have a history and we have experience of opposition. The feminist movement in Turkey is very old. The women have a lot of experience in fighting against oppressive fathers, oppressive husbands, oppressive regimes, and I was in prison with Kurdish women, and most resilient people I've ever met were my prison friends. That's something, an unbeatable spirit, I think, also in Turkey, not only in women, but women. I have more hope in women and Kurds. They could be the same person, could be a woman and Kurd at the same time, but people will not give in so easily, I think, and they will perhaps overcome this fear. You know, fear accumulates, but it has a barrier. After you pass that barrier, fear stops, fear kind of disappears. So maybe that, or the economic pressure and the economic crisis in Turkey also might shake things, but let's try to be hopeful, I say.
And let's try to write and to influence because that is one of the main points for me of my job at Penn, is to keep the literature going in the original languages. Because if you lose the opportunity to work into the discussions in a country, then you lose everything. You know, we need to have something which is moving the country, and literature is one of the things. Are your books are still there? The 5 books you wrote?
Yeah, but I don't think that they are selling.
Okay, that problem we all know.
Yeah, but I just want to make a little addition what Aslı said. I agree with Aslı, but I'm just leaving a question mark that if we were doing this discussion 10 or 15 years ago, could easily put some arguments on the discussion to what to do or what not to do in Turkey's expense. But now the freedom of speech in Turkey is at an irreversible point until this ruling party changes, in my point of view. But they changed the laws, they changed the regulations so badly. So I'm not really sure what will happen if another party comes to rule, because the system took a really big, I don't know, it's a really big hurt for the system.
Yeah,
So,
the administration is established, right?
Yeah.
That is always a problem.
Yeah, and now they are trying to rewrite or to recreate the main laws for the Turkish government. And yeah, let's just keep ourselves hopeful. No.
This conversation is finished. We are hopefully not. So we do what we did before. We are fighting against the dictators all around the world.
We need 2 days more to talk about this.
Yes, of course. But it will be not the last discussion about Turkey, and not the last discussion about oppression of LGBT people. So I wish you all a very nice evening.
Yeah, thank you, Leander.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye, Victor.
Goodbye.